Hey guys, I'm Heather Darnell and welcome back to my art channel. So today, instead of reaching for a typical canvas, which I always enjoy working on, I thought I would do something different, do a little switcheroo and pick up a little wooden cutout instead that's in the shape of the state of Texas. And if you want to paint on your own wooden state cutout, I will provide the link for you in the description so you can get one for yourself. But since I'm in Texas, how fitting would it be to paint the Texas state flag and the Texas state flowers, the bluebonnets? I mean, hello, talk about an awesome pair. But before we get started, the ministry snack I wanted to share with you comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 16. It's long, but it's good, as they all are. And it reads, "And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, and their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by the Father who is in secret. And your Father who is in secret will reward you." My goodness gracious, that is so long. I mean, it is a lot. It's very, very heavy. And it could be confusing. So I'm hoping I'm able to break it down a little bit for you better, at least. But I'm going to pick out a couple of words and start with the word fasting, which is something that we choose to do. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that we are required to fast. Fasting is merely a gesture to God, telling him that we are willing and wanting to sacrifice what we typically love and enjoy to have as often as we have it, such as food or tangible items or something. They're willing to put that aside and feed our minds and our souls with his word that would do us better anyways. The bottom line is it's because we want to do it. Like I said, God doesn't want us, if we do choose to fast, he doesn't want us to fast to the point where we get sick, and die, because that's not what he wants. We're on this earth for a mission to continue out his mission. So if you fast, do it as you feel that you're, as much as you're compelled to or pushed by the Holy Spirit to do so. But when you do, if you do not do it and be hypocritical about it. Like, I'm doing this because I want to put a face on and make an appearance that I'm so good and holy and righteous and this and everything. You're really rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, hence being hypocritical. Now, we're all fallen and we all are hypocritical to some degree, but there are really some that don't help it for anybody else who's trying to follow Christ's way or who's entertaining the idea to go to church, and you come across people like that and you're like, yeah, that's right, I don't go to church. Just know that they are not fully on God's path. They're not fully with him. They're on their own agenda, and that's unfortunately not going to really get them very far, or you if you choose that way. But the hypocritical portion of that is just basically saying, if you choose to fast, wash your face of that phoniness, go in secrecy and do it because it's meaningful to you and God alone. Just like your relationship with your spouse or your significant other, you don't share intimate details with anybody else. It's personal, it's private, it's in secret. It's because it's meant between you and that person. Just like your relationship is with God, it's very personal. So do it in secret. So for the guy who's over here, who's putting on a face and being all gloomy, he's basically seeking the glory of man so that he can be applauded because he's fasting, yay. And 10, 15 minutes later, hence the term 15 minutes of fame, he'll be a has-been and a nobody, and that's his reward. Very short-lived. God basically giving him the reward he sought out, which is the glory of man. Again, very short-lived and meaningless. Versus by doing something in secrecy, wholeheartedly for you and our Father's relationship, you will be praised for eternity. God will recognize that for you. So when you go to heaven and you're like, yeah, but I fasted all these days and times here, God knows your heart. He's like, I don't see any one of those meaning anything, so no, I don't have any accountability of it. Versus someone who came and didn't mention anything about it, but God knows what you did out of the goodness of your heart. He's like, you know what? I remember you doing this, all these things for me all the time. And I thank you, good and faithful servant. Praises to you, and those will be everlasting. So choose your reward. Choose the face that you're willing to put on in public or in private, because one is going to mean nothing and the other one is going to mean everything. All right, guys, I hope I was able to flatten that out a little bit more for you, but now let's go to the table and get started.
I'm beginning my project by drawing in where the Texas flag lines will be on my 12-inch MDF cutout by Diverse Woodworking. I applied a few layers of gesso on it, which is why it's white. If you're unsure what gesso is and or the big whoop about it, please be sure to check out my Gesso 101 tutorial, and I'll provide the link in the description. Good stuff for you guys. Next, I'm drawing in the star and also use the ruler to ensure my lines are straight. Here I'm putting some painter's tape on my piece to keep my lines clean when I paint. Using my 1-inch tip flat brush or wash brush, I begin by using the color Pyrrole Red on the bottom right side. I love it because it's so bright yet it's very opaque as well. Here I'm just finishing up a second coat, which really isn't necessary, but when you use gesso, especially several layers, it really does brighten the color paints even more, which is fabulous. But I don't want it too bright, so the second coat brings the tint back down to its actual color. Once the red is dried, I remove one piece of tape and change places for the other piece of tape by lowering it so that I'll be able to fully paint the upper right portion, which is still with the same brush, but now I'm using titanium white, another great opaque color. You may even see the difference in the tints of white here. Hopefully you'll see now just how much gesso really brightens colors, even white. Now I switch to my number 2 filbert brush, still using titanium white, but I'm filling in the state star. For the left side of the flag details, I'm using a Prussian blue hue, which is another opaque paint and dries pretty dark, which is great because the blue bonnets won't get lost. Back to my number 2 filbert brush, I'm just making sure all my lines around the star are nice and clean before I remove the tape and reveal the completed flag. Now onto those beautiful blue bonnets. Since these are small in scale, every little detail will be hard to achieve, so this is more of a basic or simplistic way to make them. Starting with my number 6 flat shader, I'm double loading the colors with a light olive green and Hooker's green permanent hue on my brush. In other words, I'm using one color on one side of the brush and then the other color on the other side of the brush. As you can see, I'm gently using the edge line going in an upward direction to make the stems, which are spaced about an inch apart. I'm purposely trying not to make them perfectly straight, that just wouldn't look natural. Notice I'm also making them different heights. I also go over my stems again just to make sure they stand out. For the leaves, I still use the same brush and colors, but now instead of gently using the edge line of the brush, I'm going to press the edge line and then sort of pull and lift as they get closer to the stem to make the leaves more slender looking. This is a great technique to practice, by the way, before you start your official painting. Now, since bluebonnets have somewhat of a star-shaped leaf, is why I'm trying to add at least 4 to 5 leaves to each stem along the baseline. You'll also quickly see that I go back and add more color to those leaves that don't look like they stand out much. Still using the edge of my brush, But now I'm going to go back to being gentle again to gently stamp in diagonal lines at alternating heights that will serve as little stems on the main stem. I do the same technique at the top of each flower that I did to make the leaves, to give each one the appearance of little fresh flowers that are yet to still bloom, which gives the flower the growing height that it has. Back to my number 2 filbert, I'm now using an iridescent fairy tale blue for the flower color. I'm basically just stamping in the flower buds into little clusters going up to about 80% or so of the flower's height. Finally, I add some titanium white to the fairy tale blue to soften it up some, or bring the tint down, and do the same pattern at the top portion of each flower since the newer buds are lighter blue, followed by more titanium white for the top or the tip of the flower, and along with the inner blooms within the entire flower. I hope that makes sense. On top, on the bottom, inside, outside. Well, here's the finished product. I love all the diverse state flags, but I especially love how the Texas flag stays red, white, and blue. Freedom colors, baby. Also, I just had to add some finishing touches by writing in where I've not only been blessed immensely, like in more ways than I can count during our 4-year assignment here, but it's also where I was saved. I may have been a little late being nearly 41 years old when that happened, but hey, better late than never, and I couldn't be happier. I also thought it would be neat to throw in a little history of when San Angelo was established, which was all the way back in 1869. Just a teeny little town, and now it's booming. It's currently the biggest city in the state of Texas that doesn't have a freeway or major highway passing through it. Although I recently heard that one is on the table as far as consideration to put here in the near future, which is totally understandable because, like I said, San Angelo is thriving. I have never seen so many homes and businesses come about in the short time we've been here. I'm telling you, we're actually considering coming back here to retire. So that concludes this lesson, and in case you were wondering, yes, all the colors and supplies that I used will be listed in the description if you want to give this a try for yourself. And if you like the tutorial, please be sure to not only share it, but to also hit like and subscribe for more videos. But more importantly, remember to thank God for this opportunity and always paint from the soul.